65 years after a little boy was found dead inside a cardboard box, police finally have an identity for him.
This morning, a decades-old murder mystery partially solved.
Until today, he's only been known as the boy in the box, a cold case that has stumped investigators for 65 years.
Mysterious boy in the box case. Everything you need to know. A mysterious boy was found in a box with no sign of life. He was filled with bruises and marks. So many questions attached to this. What could have happened? Who killed him? And where were his parents? Who was he? All these questions were honestly hard to answer, but as time went on, the police eventually figured out who he was. Now, this is the story of a mysterious boy that was found in a box. But before we go into this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. On the evening of February 23, 1957, a LaSalle college student parked his automobile off Susquehanna Road and began to stroll across a deserted lot in the drizzling rain, setting in motion the unfolding of the mystery that would prove to be the most enduring and puzzling in the history of Philadelphia detective work. The unidentified young man, who was between the ages of 18 and 26 according to various newspaper accounts, was a peeping Tom on his way to spy on the female residents of the nearby Catholic Good Shepherd home. What he discovered when he walked across the vacant lot that night, however, would completely demolish any desire he had to peep in the windows of teenage girls. What he found was shocking, as there was a little body packed into a cardboard box that, at first glance, didn't look suspicious. He was so shaken up that he forgot everything about the women in their underwear. Soon he was running back to his vehicle. Nervous and ashamed, the man eventually notified his priest about his discoveries the next day. He complied, but only after making up a story about how he discovered the box while chasing a rabbit through the weeds, at which point the police were dispatched to the parking lot. After waiting a day, the student called the police, who began investigating the boy's death and the circumstances surrounding his discovery in a box. It was a puzzle that would be spoken about for years to come. The youngster, who was initially estimated to be between 4 and 6 years old, was found to have been battered to death, as confirmed by an autopsy. Yet the evidence was scarce, and extensive investigation spanning decades yielded no results. The name, the kid in the box, was given to the unidentified victim. Milder names were America's Unknown Child and America's Lost Boy. His name was unknown for an extremely long time, but eventually, investigators found out his name: Joseph Augustus Zarelli. The chain of events that led to Joseph's identification began in April 2019, when a court ordered his body to be exhumed so that modern DNA research could be performed. They were able to locate his mother and father, who are both presumed to be dead, thanks to this, investigators added. He still has living siblings, but the police are keeping their identities secret. The college student who waited a day before calling the authorities was probably too scared to do so immediately. As before he went to the authorities, he went to talk to a priest. There was a man's corduroy cap near where the boy was found. There was a local shop where the headgear was found in. The proprietor of the shop knew the cap's strap and the man who wore it as a lone customer. The man, however, was never located. The cops were also able to track down the original retailer of the boy's cardboard box. According to the National Missing and Unidentified People System, the contents of the box labeled "Furniture Fragile, Do Not Open with Knife" were originally a bassinet. The store's cash-only policy didn't stop investigators from finding the buyer, but no evidence linked him to the youngster. The authorities investigated pediatricians, hospitals, and other medical facilities in the area. Pictures of the young kid were published in newspapers and mailed out with monthly utility bills. His likeness was plastered on billboards and displayed in windows. The trail leading to the boy's murderer eventually petered out. Nonetheless, speculations over his true identity lingered. It was speculated that he was a Hungarian refugee who had emigrated to the United States following the revolution in his home country in 1956. Some theorized that he was the lost kid of carnival workers who had experienced a string of mysterious deaths among their offspring. Some folks assumed he was the kid of a local roofer. Dr. Joseph Spellman, Philadelphia's chief medical examiner, conducted the autopsy on the boy. He estimated the youngster to be between 4 and 6 years old. His blue eyes sparkled, and his light blonde hair was unevenly chopped and shaved almost to the skull. As he passed away, he was a pitiful 41 inches tall and 30 pounds light. Dr. Spellman stated that the child had been brutally beaten before his death, as evidenced by the numerous new bruises all over his body and face. Some of the scars were rather old: an L-shaped one on his jaw, a 1-inch surgical scar on the left side of his breast, a circular irregular scar on his left elbow, a well-healed scar near the groin, likely from hernia surgery, and a scar on the left ankle that resembled a cut-down incision, used to expose veins for a blood transfusion. Despite being circumcised, the youngster showed no signs of having been vaccinated, suggesting he had not attended a public school. Spellman's report was full of other interesting information. The right palm of the victim's hand and the bottoms of both feet were rough and wrinkled, indicating that they had been immersed in water either before or after death. The boy's left eye fluoresced brilliant blue when exposed to ultraviolet light, suggesting he had recently been treated with a diagnostic dye for chronic eye disease. Spellman concluded that the boy died from head trauma, most likely caused by a blunt instrument. However, he could not rule out the possibility that damage had been done by pressure, leading some investigators to speculate that the boy's death was caused by someone squeezing his head during his last botched haircut. They put clothes on him and took pictures of his bruised face in case they could identify him. But over the years, their hopes faded that they would ever be able to find out his name. In cases where comparing hair samples, footprints, or X-rays had failed in the past, genetic genealogy proved successful. At the press presentation, Philadelphia police announced their intention to apply genetic genealogy techniques to additional cases involving unidentified bodies or cold cases. Elmer Palmer, the first police officer on the site on February 26, 1957, stated he expected the case to be solved swiftly in an interview with the New York Times published in 2007. But several detectives who worked on the case for years have passed away without living to see it solved, authorities revealed on Thursday. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reports that the youngster was malnourished and suspected to have been deceased for several days. According to the National Missing and Unidentified People System, he was found in a remote area without any clothing on and wrapped in a flannel blanket. Both his hair and fingernails had been recently cut in a way that suggested it was not the product of a qualified barber, as the national system puts it. Investigators followed a number of different lines of inquiry in an attempt to identify the child in the box, but two seemed particularly promising. The first occurred in 1960, when a man named Remington Bristow, who worked for the medical examiner's officer, consulted a psychic. The psychic directed Bristow to an area fostering care facility. The Philly Voice reports that Bristow saw a bassinet similar to those offered at J.C. Penney, and blankets that matched the ones found on the body of the deceased boy during an estate sale at the foster home. He speculated that the owner's unwed stepdaughter had given birth to the boy. According to the Philly Voice, a lady who only gave her initials as M informed detectives in 2002 that she remembered her mother buying a boy from another family in 1954 because she was harsh. She identified him as Jonathan, and M said that her mother had abused him physically and sexually. M said her mother had beaten him to death after he threw up baked beans one night. Baked beans were discovered in the boy's stomach. Therefore, it was reported that M's story appeared plausible. Another possible explanation for the pruny fingers is that M's mother had tried to bathe the boy after beating him. The police looked into it, but they couldn't find any evidence to back up her story. A break in the investigation was revealed by Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw on December 8, 2022. According to her, Joseph Augustus Zarelli was the boy who was discovered dead in 1957. During a press briefing, Outlaw and other police officials revealed that genetic genealogy was key in identifying Zarelli. Investigators were able to locate his mother's family when his DNA was uploaded to genetic databases. They found his father's name after combing through birth documents. In addition, they discovered that Zarelli's mom had 3 more kids. The autopsy revealed that Joseph Augustus Zarelli lived to be 4 years old, having been born on January 13, 1953. After this, the detectives remained silent. We have other crime stories. Everyone is more mysterious than the other. You wouldn't want to miss out, so do well to click that subscribe button and like this video. You should also click the notification bell to get notified when we drop new videos.